Today's project is the old garage fridge. It is leaking, so we are going to tear it apart and fix it today. We have the towels we've been trying to put in there to soak up the water that's been leaking. And what's going on is every time you open the door of the fridge or the freezer, moisture gets in from just humidity in the air. It finds its way to the coils and it gets frozen on the coils. And then it has a defrost cycle that heats up those coils, and the coils are back in the back of the freezer, and the water is supposed to drip down through a tube to the motor on the compressor that's down in the bottom underneath where it evaporates. And what happens is over time that drain tube from the top to the bottom gets plugged. So we are going to defrost the freezer completely so the tube is opened. And we've done this before, and what happens on older freezers is you get a little bit of crud or scale in that line and it gets plugged up and freezes easily. So we are going to put a piece of copper tube down in there and we're going to attach it to the heating coils to keep it from freezing in the future. So today's project was just to clean out the fridge and freezer. We're going to have to let it sit here for a day or two to completely thaw out, and then we'll open the back up and we'll show you how to put that wire in. Okay, so the only thing we've done so far is to clean the fridge, and we've let it sit for several days now to let the ice melt. And we did get a fair amount of water that ran across the floor. We're in the garage here, so it doesn't really matter. And now it's time to take this back panel out of the freezer so we can access the coils, so we can implement our repair. So to get the back panel off, you've got a couple of 1/4 inch drive screws. And this entire piece lifts out. Be gentle so you don't break anything. And if you look, there's a wire attached right there. It's just a ground wire. It's a single clip. It plugs on the inside right here. I'm just going to slide the clip off. And we can take this panel out. And now, if you look in here, and again, this is unplugged, so there's no risk of anything electricity-wise causing any problems. But the way this works, these are the cooling coils, and they get very cold, and the fan blows air through here and into the refrigerator. When it has its defrost cycle, those are shut off, and this, across the bottom, is the heating element. Put it in there so you can see. It's this separate single black piece of coil, and that's the heating element. And what that does is it heats up the coils to melt any frost that's been developing on the coils. And when it does that defrost cycle, the water drips down through this hole into the plastic tube that leads down to the motor where it lands on a tray and evaporates. So what we are going to do is we are going to wrap a piece of copper wire around this and shove it down in that hole so we can get some of the heat down into the drain tube to keep it from frosting up, from freezing. Here's my piece of copper wire. This is a piece of 14 gauge wire from something left over from an electrical project. If you don't have a piece of wire, go to Lowe's. They have a place where they sell cut-off ends at a discounted price. Then you can find a piece of this stuff for cheap. So if I look at the length of this wire, I don't want it to go beyond the height of this glass, because back in underneath, that's where the compressor is, and I don't want it to reach the whole way to the compressor. So I'm going to set this so that it's about 3 inches above the height of that glass shelf. So up here, I'm going to bend that so I know how far down it's going to go. So I'm going to shove it down in that tube up to this bend, and then we'll wrap it, we'll cut it off and wrap it around the heating element. So I actually bent the end of this into a little circle so it doesn't catch on anything in the tube. Okay, so it's down in there quite a ways. And here's my bend. That was my marker, so we're going to stop at that point. Let's swing it around and come this direction. Okay, so there you have it. Copper wire down into the drain tube, and it just wraps a couple times around the heating coil. I'm going to try and squeeze that a little bit tighter right here. These fins on the cooling coils are sharp, so you have to be careful. But there, I think we're good. Okay, so we're going to put this back together and turn it on, and we'll be good to go. So you can see that ground strap that I pulled off. There's not much to it. It's just a little clip. It clips on the back of that inside panel. If you look, right here is the little tab that that ground wire straps onto. So I'm going to set the panel in here. Angle. And I'm going to reach behind here and clip that ground wire back on. Okay. And now this aligned. Set it back into place. We have the 2 screws to install. Okay, our repair is complete. So we're going to restart the fridge and check and see if we have any problems, but that should solve the issue because it'll keep the ice from freezing in the drain tube, and we should be good to go. Hope you like this video. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons.